Oh, fabulous. It's another "this is what I'm up to during the quarantine" video. Right, so over the years a bunch of my friends have said to me that I should really post some baking and cooking videos, as it's one of my great passions, and I thought at a time like this, why not? Now, speaking of a time like this weekend is actually Easter, and one of our favourite things to eat in the UK at this time of year are hot cross buns. Now, if you've never had a hot cross bun, or you don't even know what a hot cross bun is, you're in for a bit of a treat. Okay gang, so we're going to get on with the baking. So one of the kitchen gadgets that I feel is absolutely essential if you do lots of cooking or certainly baking, because we're constantly hearing how scientific baking is, and getting your quantities and your amounts spot on does make an enormous difference. So I do highly recommend buying yourself an electronic scale. I got it online, it was cheap as chips, it was probably, you know, a tenner or something like that. So well worth getting yourself one of these. Now, very pleasant beeping noise as well, just so we know that it's on. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be mixing together our flour, our yeast, our sugar, our little bit of salt, and our butter and our egg into this mix. And then we're going to be slowly adding the milk to it to make a lovely, soft, luscious, unctuous, marvellous dough. Right, so next thing to do is we're going to weigh some of our ingredients. Now I've got my trusty mixer out here. If you don't have one of these, it's not going to be a problem. You can absolutely do it by hand. And what I'm going to do, because I'm such a nice bloke, is I'm going to use the mixer for people that have a mixer. And then I'm also going to do some of the mixing and the kneading and everything with my hands for those who don't. And whether you do or whether you don't, I think baking is always a really fun thing to do with, you know, your partner or maybe your children, or, you know, whoever it may be, if you have a partner or children. And if you don't, just do it on your own. It's still a good laugh. If you are going to be using a mixer, you will be using this instrument of torture, otherwise known as a bread hook. That goes onto there like so. But like I said, if you don't have a mixer and this instrument of torture, no problem. You have these instruments of torture, and I will be showing you how to do it all by hand.
Okay, so you can see that the warm milk has combined with the dry ingredients and with the egg and with the butter to create this really beautiful, soft, sticky dough. Now this is wonderful, this is what we want, but we're going to need to work this considerably to get it to the required consistency.
Okay gang, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on mixing this dough with the mixer. You want it to get sort of nice and smooth. Like I showed you before, it was super soft and it really felt lovely. It's kind of the advantage actually that you get from using your hands rather than a mixer. But because I've made this before, I just kind of know what it's meant to be like. Again, a lot of cooking and baking is about feel and texture and smell and sight, and you know, it really is a sensual experience. So I'm going to carry on using the mixer, but what I'm going to do is at the end I'll finish kneading it by hand. There are there's probably millions of videos of like how one should knead. All we're trying to do is develop the gluten in the dough, right? So you're sort of stretching it and folding it over on itself and stretching it and folding it over on itself without tearing it. That's basically what kneading is.
Right, so here we go. After a good 5 or 10 minutes in the mixer, or if you're kneading by hand, you can see how wonderfully smooth and soft this dough is. Like as I try to pry it apart with my thumbs here, you can see that it doesn't tear. Now, how about a top tip? So when you're working in the kitchen, to stop your cutting board from sliding around, if you place a damp tea towel underneath it, it won't move anywhere. You're welcome. Okay, so here's my kneading method. Like I said, there's a million videos showing you how to do this, but all you want to do is stretch and turn the dough over on itself without tearing it. Wicked, that's done, so just pop it back in the bowl and cover it with some cling film.
Mate, I'm gonna do a video of me baking, and it's your fault. It's your fault. It's you want, what'd you say, 5? At
least 5.
Mate, no, you said 5, and that's on video. There he is. Yes, mate. What's going on?
You sexy bastard. I just saw you and your brother and your sister.
You're joking.
I was gonna post social distancing, but then I read the caption.
So, mate, listen. Because of you, and because of a few other people in my life, my friends, this is why I'm recording you right now on the camera. I have decided, yes, I'm going to make a baking video. And you are now part of it, mate.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait because I need something that those bread recipes sweet.
Mate, well, it's Easter, so I'm going to do hot cross buns.
Okay, nice.
I'm going to do hot cross buns.
And I also like scones. So if you can make scones as well.
Scones?
Yeah.
Mate, that's video 2.
All right, man.
All right, brother. Lots of love, mate. Lots of love to you and the family. I'll check in with you soon.
I appreciate it.
All right, Papa.
Cheers.
See you, mate. Okay, so now, as I said, the hard work was being done by nature, and as you can see, our dough has risen rather marvelously. Now, don't worry too much about like over-rising and stuff. You know, on Great British Bake Off, you know, greatest television program ever, they often say that things are over-proofed and stuff like that. Now, you might think that that's more than sort of doubled, it's maybe even tripled in size. Look at that huge air bubble, just going to pop that. But don't really worry about it because you're going to back this down anyway because we've got to add our fruit and our spices and all that kind of thing, and then it's going to rise again. So right now, look at that. That's vaguely rude, isn't it? We're going to knock this back. Watch this. Bosh. So you're knocking all the air out of it anyway. So don't worry too much if you think it might have risen too much, but don't rise it too little, if that makes sense. It needs to at least double in size.
Okay, so I've knocked all the air out of my dough, as you can see, and now I'm going to add my fruit, my spices, my zest, and my chopped apple. Now, as you're working this with your hand, and you can see that I'm kind of using my fist here to incorporate all of those ingredients, if it does feel a little bit too wet, by all means, add a little bit more flour. And if you're using a mixer, just give it a good knead for another 5 or 10 minutes. And again, if you were doing this by hand, just pop some flour down on your board, chuck the dough on there, and give it a good knead. And this is the consistency that we're looking for. It's still quite a sticky dough, but it is nice and firm, as you can see. We're now going to cover this with some cling film and let it rise again until it doubles. Probably going to be about an hour, maybe 2 hours.
Wicked. Okay, so we've now incorporated our fruit and our zest and our spices and stuff. Brilliant. Now, people might say, if you've taken all that time to allow the dough to rise, why would you then knock it all out again? Well, like we said before, we're not actually knocking it out. We are evenly distributing those air bubbles rather than having those whopping great bubbles that we had before. You know, when I showed you after the first rise, we had these huge and actually a vaguely rude bubble on top. So we want to knock all that air into the dough and make sure that we have little bubbles throughout. If you think of a lovely piece of bread or a piece of cake or indeed a bun, they've got those lovely little holes in them which make them soft and luscious and kind of yielding. And that's what we want. We want a lovely, soft, round, yielding bun. Okay, cool. Next thing I wanted to talk about now, like I said before, baking is scientific, right? People are always banging on about it must be this and it must be that. And that's true to a degree. I mean, it's still your thing. You're still going to eat it. You're going to share it with your loved ones, with your friends, with your family, whomever it may be. So the ingredients still have to be to your preference. So for example, with this recipe, it calls for mixed peel, and I'm just not a fan of mixed peel, so I'm going to nix it. Same with the spices. I love cinnamon, in it goes. I love pumpkin spice, in it goes. Allspice, in it goes. A little bit of clove, in it goes. If you don't like any of those things, just don't put them in. They're for you. Again, this recipe called for whole milk, and I don't have whole milk, so I used 2%. You know, it's not a shootable offence. It's not going to be the difference between these being the best buns you've ever eaten and these being a complete disaster. There are lots of ways that these could be a complete disaster, but not adding or adding things to your preference is never going to be one of those things. So always do make things to your taste.
Right, so once your dough has again doubled in size, pour it out onto a liberally floured board, knead it for about 2 minutes, and then roll it into a sausage shape so you can cut it into 12 even pieces, or as even as you can possibly get them, and then roll those into balls. Now they will be sticky, so do use some flour on your hands as well. You might be wondering, where's the video for this, Tej? And I have to be honest, I forgot to shoot it. I'm so sorry, this is my first food video. They will get better, I promise you. Anyway, after you've rolled the dough into balls, place them on a lined baking sheet. Now, I use the silicone liners, but parchment paper will work just fine. Then cover them with cling film for the third and final, I promise you, rest. You want to place them about 1 inch apart. Now, after about an hour, they will again have doubled in size and also joined together. Now, this is what we want. These are very much a tear and share type of a thing, so we want them to join together. Like these! Yes, the video is back! Now you'll just need to decorate them. You can either use the traditional cross or any design that you like. I've done a bit of both. Now be sure to start your design on the baking sheet rather than on the bun, and then just drag your piping bag across, or one of these little doozies, and then you are ready for the oven.
So they're nearly done. The last thing you're going to need is to glaze them so they get a lovely shiny top, as is traditional. And how do they get a shiny top? With this, bosh, some apricot jam. So what you're going to do is that once they come out of the oven, while they're still warm, is chuck some of this into a saucepan, warm it up, strain out any large chunks and brush it over the top of your luscious soft buns. Ooh!
Huzzah! Yet more video. And after 20 minutes, they are a beautiful chestnut brown and they are done. Look how chuffed he is with himself, jabbering on about all sorts of nonsense. And look at this funny little thing. I actually lost my pastry brush, but I found this in the drawer. I don't really know what it is, so I've stuck it on the end of my finger, but it's going to do the job just fine. And look how shiny and gorgeous these are. Just wonderful.
Right, they are done, and the proof of the pudding, as they say, is in the eating. So here they are. I'm just going to hold that up, see if you can see that. Beautiful and shiny. They're lovely and soft. I've cut it already, so you can see the inside. Look at that. You can see all the fruit and all the apple and all that sort of stuff. Really, they smell wonderful. Now just for a little bit of butter, which I have here conveniently. Room temperature, obviously. And then you're just going to slap some of that on there. You can't see her, but my dog, she's at our feet here. My little dog here. And there it is. That is absolutely delicious. Beautiful. That with a cup of tea. Perfect. Have a lovely Easter weekend. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.